Okay, welcome again. So we're reading chapter 7 this week, The Unveiling of Myself. And we will start with guided meditation. So first, let's arrive. Find ourselves here and now. And all of the prompts for today's meditation come pretty much directly from this chapter. So let's become aware of the experience of being myself, or the knowledge I am. Allow the feeling of being myself, or the knowledge I am, to bring you back to yourself from the adventure of experience. Through this separation of our essential self from experience, our being is divested of the qualities it acquires from experience and stands revealed. Silent, still, at peace. So just continue to rest into your being, divested of the qualities of experience. And in this silent, still, peaceful place of being, allow interest in the drama of life to fall away and become instead profoundly interested in who you are. Allow the interest in the nature of I to eclipse all other interests. And allow yourself to fall in love with that sense of being myself. And just continue to rest there for another moment. That powerful sense of love. And the fascination of what it means to be myself, the nature of I. And now taking a couple deep breaths. I'll open it up if there's anything that wants to be shared about the meditation before we begin the reading. All right. Anybody want to start us off on chapter 7, The Unveiling of Myself?
I can.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah,
Chapter
so as
7.
usual, just read the first up to the dots and then we'll pause.
That sounds good. The unveiling of myself. The sense of being myself is an opening in the mind through which we may pass on our return home from the adventure of experience. Imagine you are looking at a watercolor of a landscape under a cloudy sky, and your attention is drawn to one of the clouds in the distance, which has caught the rays of the sun and is particularly bright. Looking more closely at the painting, you notice that this is the only part of the paper where the artist has not applied any watercolor. From a distance, the bare patch of white looks like an object in the painting, a cloud, one object amongst many. But from close up, you see there is no paint, only white paper. The sense of being myself, or the knowledge I am, is the little patch of white paper in the painting of experience. It seems to be an object in experience, one amongst many, but on coming closer, we see that it is an opening, a portal to our essential being or self, the ever-present background of all experience. The paper is, of course, present not only in the little patch of sky, but throughout the entire painting, just as our own being is present not only in the knowledge I am, but as the background of all experience. For this reason, we say, I am thinking, I am walking, I am breathing, I am eating, and so on. Our being pervades all experience. However, just as the paper is most visible when there is no watercolor covering it, so our essential being is most easily accessed at first through the simple feeling of being myself, or the knowledge I am. If we are fascinated by the content of the painting, we will see only trees, fields, animals, and sky. But as soon as our attention relaxes, we see the paper. We are, in fact, always seeing the paper, but do not realize it, due to our exclusive focus on the content. Likewise, when we are absorbed in the content of experience, we seem to lose touch with our being and are thus deprived of its innate peace and joy. Our being becomes so entangled in experience that it overlooks or forgets itself. It no longer shines clearly as it is, open, unlimited, ever present, inherently peaceful, and unconditionally fulfilled, but is colored and seemingly limited by our thoughts, feelings, sensations, and perceptions. The knowledge I am becomes I am tired, I am lonely, I am sad, and so on. Experience eclipses being. All that is necessary is to allow being to outshine experience.
And let's discuss. Well, as I already put in the thread, I love that image of the watercolor and the paper. That just really did something for me. And even though this isn't my first time through the book, somehow that just really struck me in a way that I don't think it did the first time through.
Mhm. Yeah, I resonate with that one too. That was in his podcast that I shared.
Right.
Yeah, to me, the ultimate mic drop is just the first paragraph. I mean,
Mm,
I really, really felt such a connection to those words.
yeah.
The sense of being myself is an opening in the mind through which we may pass on a return home from the adventure of experience. Equating experience with adventure. That was kind of cool to read. But an opening in the mind. That was a new thought to chew on, and I really like that. I really feel drawn. That pings for me. I really resonate with that opening paragraph. So I really meditated on that one for a few minutes before I read any more. I like that though.
Mm.
I'll share what came to mind as I was reading this. I was in waiting in a waiting room doctor's appointment for my wife, and it was full of different people of all different colors, shapes, sizes, everything, and people also not in the best of moods, and things are hurting, aching. And I remembered from the previous chapter, I reread chapter 6, and it talks about the sun, and just the sun being that physical way to see that ever shining light. And I looked outside and saw a cloud, and I was like, okay, when I see clouds, that can remind me of this metaphor. And then I looked around, and I was like, everyone here is a blank canvas. And some people have been, they've brushed themselves, they've created their own brushes, but then some things have happened where someone else will paint on top of them, and that'll, brush over what they've painted. And it just kind of struck me as like, okay, like when you see a cloud, remember that the blank canvas, and to look at everyone around. So I've been trying to incorporate that as I look at the sun. I'm like, okay, there's that source, that creator that we can see. And then here's the cloud, and the cloud is the reminder to look at everyone as a blank canvas, and we are all there. And some don't get to choose if they're the painting of war, or the painting of this beautiful sunset, or whatever it is. So it was a nice physical reminder again for me to sink back to that unity of everything. So yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That reminds me of something that I've gotten from Rupert that I think was not directly from this book, but just like the way that the sky, is another metaphor that a lot of teachers use, and that he uses as well, like that the sky is synonymous in some ways with the paper, and the experiences like cover over the paper, and the same thing with the sky, and then the clouds cover over the sky. And so when we're in touch with the sky, which is ourself, we experience peace and joy, and the sort of beautiful experiences that we always long for. But then they seem to come and go because the clouds come and cover them. So it seems as though sometimes I'm sad, and sometimes I'm happy, or sometimes I'm peaceful. And I have really appreciated his pointing to, actually, that happiness, that peace is always there, even though it can seemingly become covered by our experience, and that the way, or a way to return to it is through that sense of being myself, that we always have access to the clear sky. Yeah. And I appreciate hearing that from you, Neil, like in terms of how you are using that as a reminder to see others that way too. And I think that that's helpful for me too, to remember not just for myself that, that I always have that blue sky, but everyone, the blue sky is where we're all connected, and everyone has and is that.
Yeah, it really brought me out of judging, and this older couple sat down next to me with rugged clothes and just very intense cigarette smell, and I went into, gosh, they stink and they're annoying and they're talking too loud, and it really just reset myself and allowed me to, I don't know, like I was getting upset, and so it helped, just to seeing others just helps me. So I think it's both, it works both ways. To see others that way will in turn help you. But might have kind of a question of so it says the knowledge I am becomes I am tired, I am lonely, I am sad, and so on.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if does he go into talking about like the power of that? So when you say like I am lonely, and how that can really kind of make you go the opposite way that you're not trying to, of adding those. This is being, I guess, really careful of what you're saying after I am.
I don't think that he does in this book. He does in other teachings, I think. In my experience, not as much as other teachers. Like from my experience, that Byron Katie definitely goes there. Like that's a focus of her teaching, is like witnessing the power of our minds and how our freedom is allowed to create identity. But yeah, I don't think he goes there in this book. I know he talks about, he has what he calls the yoga meditations, which I think kind of allow you to go more into a practice of dissolving identity. But yeah, not
So like set ways that he explains the correct use of I am, and like the intensity of what follows, I guess.
Yeah, or just different experiences, different ways to practice experiencing the truth. Yeah. Yeah, but in terms of like going into the identity thing, I don't think that he does. Go ahead, Caroline.
Oh, I just kind of see all those seemingly I am fill in the blank as an ego or egoic construct that I'm getting lost in the experience, and I'm identifying that as a label or a role or a feeling, and I think that I am that. So I think that's the way I see this. I interpret this myself is it's always coming back to the state of I am, which is the never changing divine self, whereas all these little fill in the blanks are the world of changefulness. And I think transcending the roles and identifications that the world gives us, or identifying myself as this feeling like I am that. It's sort of like I am not that. That's kind of where I used to go in my meditation. Is it was so easy for me to say I am tired or I am whatever, but I am not that. I am not my thoughts. I'm not so to me, putting things in that context seem like egoic. They stem from the ego.
Kind of.
And it can be a distraction.
Yeah.
So it's a mindful practice, I think, to come back for myself to remember I am, that is the supreme, and nothing needs to follow that. When I'm in this state of total awareness, there is no line after I am. It's just I am that I am and nothing else.
Yeah, no, I find myself sometimes like frustrated in traffic, like, okay, I am love, and like trying to force it, and it just doesn't feel authentic. And I don't know if like there was that practice of using correct words or how to do it correctly, but I think that makes a lot of sense, of just not adding too much after, and just like, I am the awareness. I am that blank canvas. I am pre-experience of being whatever, and not trying to force something on top of it. And I think that just kind of combats itself. So that's a good explanation.
And yet for me, what started out in this and continues is a phrase that I've used that is very empowering to me with I am that I am. I mean, it comes right back to what I am that I am. That's all. You know, it seems like it adds emphasis or something, or maybe it's just my history with the power of that phrase and why it I started to say it doesn't come from ego, but I don't think ego is bad. I think ego is energy, and it's useful. It's there. It's for purpose. It's how we use it that makes it helpful or not helpful. But without it, I don't think we'd get much of anything done. You know, float around in the I am. I don't know. But that
Sounds good to me.
yeah, that thought came up, that it's hard for me not to say that I am after I say I am that I am.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel similarly that the ego and the like mechanism of identity is, you know, a part of creation. I think it's intentional. I think it's beautiful, you know, like the whole of creation is sort of like a game of like hide and seek, you know, and how we hide is through identity. Like we get all the way covered over with all the watercolor paint, or, you know, all the clouds. And then we go, wait, this feels really off. This feels really weird. This feels really, and then we, a little bit at a time, there it is. Or, you know, sometimes in a flash, I was never that. I'm the sky. I'm the paper. I'm the self. Yeah. And I also find similarly, like with in terms of if I'm feeling identified for myself, like if I'm like, oh, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, or I'm worthless, or, you know, some of those, like, you know, negative stories that we tell ourselves. For me, affirmations, like to go to I am love kind of things, that doesn't work for me. I get that it does work for other people, but for me, that, like in those moments where I'm identified or coming from a concept kind of place, I'm not really interested in going again to another concept, even if it's a positive concept. What does work for me, and, you know, again, like, not to say this is what needs to work for everyone, but what does work for me is to return to the I am, which is prior to the story. And then from there, I find that I naturally become more like effortlessly love, or whatever, you know, positive thing. Like it's just a movement rather than a trying to reach for it. Yeah. So just to share my experience there.
What comes up when you think of the I am before? Because I try to think, okay, I'm the awareness, and I've been the same awareness, and I'll try to trace that back as far as I can consciously remember as a 3-4-year-old. And I said, okay, I'm still the same like I'm the same thing, thinking that I am this thing. So I don't know if that, like, memory of the youngest human self is what I kind of draft up. I don't know if you go into any other visualization of the I am before everything, I guess.
To me or to everybody?
Yeah, like is there a sense of that before that you get? Because I go down to my 4-year-old self as the horror. That's just kind of what I get when I think of the before experiences of
Yeah, I have concepts that help me. And then I also, when I'm really in touch with it's like it transcends a concept for me. You know, it's like it's a meditative place where it's like I'm just connected, you know? And I think that's one of the hallmarks for me of like when I know that I'm connected to the I am or to that place is the experience of connection or also, you know, an experience of love or peace. Yeah. So to me, it's like the you know, obviously the metaphors of like the sky and the paper and the image of yourself before you were 4, like those are really helpful. But they're pointing you to some place where you don't even need a concept, right? Because there's just a direct experience. But I think, you know, use them. That's my suggestion. Like use them. That's what, like they're there to use. But yeah, then there's just the direct experience. And I feel like we all know it. When we find it, it's like, oh, relief. Home. There I am. Well, shall we read on? What if we do 2 this time? Anybody willing to jump in? I can. Okay, I'll do it. In a good watercolor, the paint does not completely conceal the paper. It partially covers it with thin layers of wash, leaving the white paper to shine through even the darkest tones, imparting luminosity to the painting. Likewise, no experience completely veils our self, our essential self. Our experience lies like a watercolor wash on top of ourself, which may as a result be partially obscured, but is never completely eclipsed. This is why the sense of being myself remains present even in our darkest experiences. For instance, even when we feel I am depressed, the I am is still shining there. As Albert Camus said, in the depths of winter, I finally learned that within me there lay an invincible summer. Just as the white paper gives coherence to the many different brush strokes in the painting, so our being unifies the disparate elements of experience. If it were not for the unity of being pervading all experience, experience itself would be a chaos of fragmented thoughts, feelings, sensations, and perceptions. The unity of being shines in everyone's mind as the sense of being myself, or the knowledge I am, which is like a portal for one who is lost in experience, indicating the way back to our essential being and its innate peace. Become aware of the experience of being myself, or the knowledge I am. The feeling of being myself, or the knowledge I am, seems to be an experience in the mind, whereas it is in fact an absence in the collage of a objective experience. It is an opening to our essential unlimited being. Just as a hole in a piece of paper seems to be in the paper, but is in fact an opening onto the vast space within which the paper is itself contained. The feeling of being myself, or the knowledge I am, gives us direct access to the reality of pure awareness behind and prior to the mind. It is the threshold of God's presence, the suggestion that we become aware of the feeling of being myself, or the knowledge I am, implies that we are not already aware of ourselves, but may become so. However, we are always aware of ourselves, just as the sun always illuminates itself. For this reason, everyone has a sense of being myself, although this knowledge is often diluted by objective experience. It would be more accurate to suggest that we allow the feeling of being myself, or the knowledge I am, to bring us back to ourself from the adventure of experience. The pathless path from ourself to ourself is the essence of meditation and the heart of prayer. It is what Plotinus refers to as the flight of the alone to the alone. And let's discuss it. Oh, you're muted. Were you speaking, Neil?
Yes.
Okay.
Suggestion that we become aware of the feeling of being myself with the knowledge I am implies that we are not already aware of ourselves, but may become so. So as we were reading that part, it's kind of closer towards the end, I was thinking in that moment, like, I'm hungry and I'm cold. And that felt like it took me out of that knowing. Like, as we were reading it, just it was like I don't know, it took me out of the whole rest of the paragraph, and it was just so unconscious and didn't even realize, like, my stomach garbled or whatever, rumbled, and I was just thinking, like, I am hungry, and then was thinking, wait, and then who is the I am, and should I, like, I am the awareness of being hungry. And so I was just thinking of, like, the unconscious use of I am, and and maybe it's just our language, I don't know, but I feel very like wanting to get rid of that like, oh, it's like, oh, it's 10, like, I'm tired, or I'm whatever. I don't know what I'm getting at. I'm just trying to figure out if that's unhelpful, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking when you said that, like, I am very aware of what you're saying. I started saying, I feel tired, I feel hungry. So I catch myself if I ever default to that I am something of experience, I just substitute the word feel, and that seems to work for me. But the fact that you catch yourself, that you're aware, that's more than half the battle right there. So I just started practicing the I feel language, and it gets me out of that.
Yeah, I think that's a good practice. And I found a similar practice with, like, how we say what other things are. Like, we say, it was a great movie, and, like, what would be more true is, I watched that movie and I really enjoyed it, rather than, like, that movie is great because I'm having this experience, right? That's a stretch or something. And to come back to our experience and speak about our experience rather than what things are. Those cookies are really good, really yummy. I really enjoy those cookies right now. Or, yeah, I find that also to be helpful. And I also find like it's helpful to remember that there's no mistake, that like if and when I forget and I do say I'm tired and I get lost in being tired, that's catalyst on my journey that is on purpose. It's part of creation. It's part of, for whatever reason, what needed to happen, like maybe I needed to experience being tired and lose myself in the experience of being tired for some reason that I don't know and don't understand. So yeah, I think it's also helpful on my journey to remember that, to like have an intention and have something that I'm interested in and working towards it. And then like, oops, no mistake.
This watercolor reference brings to mind something I once thought, like instead of looking at myself as this blank canvas, there's times that I've thought of myself as this masterpiece. And I always go to like a Vincent van Gogh painting, that every experience I have had has been another brushstroke on this canvas. And together, when I look at others and I'm being conscientious to think of them as divine, infinite soul, they were all this walking masterpiece. And every little experience and piece of our content of what we go to and experience in day-to-day life is just adding another little bit of paint on this canvas. I'm not particularly fond of watercolors. I love the analogy, but I can almost see myself. It's not a finish because every time I have an experience, there's another little brushstroke. But I am. But I'm also, and everybody here, all of us are masterpieces. The God that made this universe made me too. And that's really I don't know, man, I marinate in my isness when I think about that, because the God that created all of this is responsible for you and me and all of us. So we are masterpieces on this canvas, and every piece of our experience is just another brushstroke.
That's pretty awesome. In the original use of that word, pretty awe inspiring and awesome.
Mm.
Like how magnificent we really are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
Puts me in touch with grace.
Yes. I'm so glad you brought that word up. It's made me do some thinking and some research digging in ACIM. What did they say about grace? I didn't think about that. But yeah, just when I think about the fact I didn't understand that we are masterpieces of this, that there's this divine orchestration at play in the background of our life every day. And I cut myself really badly on my finger last week, and I've been marveling at this divine healing. Like, I don't do anything. It's just my body knows what to do with this really deep cut I had. And I've been really tripping on this little, I don't know. It's just brought to my attention. Everything is purposeful. There's nothing random. I cut myself, and I am so aware now at the miraculous healing of our body temple. We are masterpieces in flesh.
Yeah. I got a little cut yesterday and I've been contemplating the same thing.
Oh, have you?
Yeah. Like, whoa, my body heals itself.
I know.
Whoa.
My body.
Yeah.
Yes, my body.
So we
Yeah,
are
well, yeah.
inside of this thing. It's just ours for a little while, and we change them like a pair of clothes. And I
Right.
guess if you think of like reincarnation, it really is just, I don't know, potentially thousands of different bodies, and it's just one time. But so I guess with that kind of being the like getting to that like meditative state all the time would be, I guess, like God living, like the I and my Father are one type saying, is that Jesus was saying that, like, I am that awareness that is the creator that's created this and the life force. So it's, I don't know, I'm trying to work that into the I and my Father are one saying, and how it's like when we can get to that place of always realizing that we're the awareness, then it's the creator speaking through us. And I guess I don't like, would it, I think of Eckhart giving a 2-hour speech, and he's like, I don't know, I don't come in here with any preparation, and it just comes out. And I guess that's the goal, to just have source, just no worries, it'll come out, everything will be perfect, I'm connected with the everything. Would you say that that's the meditative state that they're talking about?
Well, I think that that experience of just showing up and not having a plan and everything falling into place is already our everyday experience without our realizing it. I think a lot of times on top of that or after the fact, we say, oh yeah, that was my plan. I did that. I made, and there may be some truth to that, but I think it's actually like sort of just the story that we tell ourselves, like there's thoughts going alongside reality as reality unfolds, and we take those thoughts to have been prediction and planning and that I'm in charge, but actually it's just kind of happening alongside, and everything just really is unfolding. And actually a few years ago I started playing with that, and just seeing where I could consciously let things just happen on their own. And that's a lot of my experience now. Like it's I think it is reality, and I think it always has. I think it actually is all of our realities. We just kind of are able to trick ourselves into something else because the thinking is going alongside of us, or alongside of it, saying, yep, I just made that decision, yep, I just took that step, oh yeah, I just put my blinker on and I turned left, but like actually the blinker, the hand moves, the blinker's on, the steering wheel's turning, I didn't do it. Can I go on? Read the next section. Anybody want to pick up at the bottom of 67?
I can read.
Great.
Not thinking real clearly tonight, but I can read.
Perfect.
Yes. We could say that there are two types of meditation, one in which we turn our attention away from the content of experience, and another in which we turn toward it. The first is an inward-facing path, which discriminates between ourself and the objects of experience. It is a path of negation, exclusion, and elimination. I am not this, not this. In theological terms, it is the via negativa. In the Zen tradition, the great death. The second is an outward-facing path of openness, inclusion, and allowing. I am this, am this. It is a path in which the apparent separation between ourself and anyone or anything is dissolved. It is a path of unconditional love. It is the via positiva. It is the great rebirth in the Zen tradition. Usually it is necessary to embark on the inward-facing path first, for most of us are so lost in the content of experience that we have almost completely overlooked or forgotten our own being. Suffering is the price we pay for this forgetting. It is a call from ourself to ourself, saying, turn around, come back to me. I am what you are looking for, but you are looking for me in the wrong direction. This separation of our essential self from experience is the inward-facing path, in which our being is, in most cases, gradually, occasionally suddenly, divested of the qualities it acquires from experience and stands revealed, silent, still, at peace. This path is the means by which we recognize the inherently peaceful and unconditionally fulfilled nature of our being. It is the cure for suffering, the direct path to peace and happiness. The outward-facing path is the means by which we recognize that our being is shared with everyone and everything. It is the remedy for conflict and the means by which kindness, harmony, and justice are restored to humanity.
Just pause there.
Mm.
Let's open it up.
I was struck with the piece on 68, that suffering is the price we pay for this forgetting. And I was thinking as I read this earlier, a few days ago, how I spent years in psychotherapy in my 20s trying to fix from my head, analytically speaking, dealing with childhood trauma and stuff. And it was like a path of virtually no progress. But when I came into the direct experience of knowing who I am at a soul level, everything started to make sense. And so that path of healing kept me in this suffering, this karmic wheel of suffering. And it dawned on me when I awakened that this is why the spiritual path is so healing, because it is from the heart space. We heal from the heart. We don't heal from the head. And so much freedom by coming back to myself, the self I did not know, that I've always been what I was looking for. And so I got really heavily in thought over that paragraph there on 68, because it profoundly impacted me. I thought about how I was on this karmic wheel of suffering and thinking I was trying to heal, but not making any progress. And I understood after the awakening kicked in, oh, it's because you heal from the heart space. You heal from there. And I think truly the purpose is peace. That's why ACIM speaks to me so much. The purpose is all about. It's what brings peace to my life. I can see peace instead of this. So I was on a path of thinking all these experiences would finally bring me happiness. And there's a line in the New Testament that says the peace that surpasses all understanding. And I lived in this very egoic world, like, I was veiled and very unconscious. What does that mean? I would say so many times to myself, how do I get there? And this is the way, coming back home to myself.
I celebrate for you that you're not wondering anymore, that you know how to find that peace.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's
Mhm.
gorgeous.
Thank you.
Go ahead,
Mhm.
Spirit Song.
the words in the next to the last paragraph, unconditionally fulfilled nature of our being, is a term I don't think that I've focused on before. Unconditionally fulfilled nature, inherently peaceful. I think I've thought of and resonated with more, but unconditionally fulfilled nature of our being as the cure for suffering makes so much sense. It's just a term I haven't used before, but it really landed in a powerful way for me.
Yeah.
It's so profound and so simple.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the dichotomy that we come bump into constantly of
Mhm.
so simple and so profound.
Right. Oh my gosh. I love that.
Mhm.
Yeah. I've had a positive connection and understanding with the term unconditional as well. Like in terms of, actually, it was a few years ago, I heard someone describe our unconditional well-being, which is similar. And I pondered that for a while. I was like, unconditional well-being, what? Like usually we hear unconditional love, but then when it was placed with well-being, it was like, what does that mean? And then like I had this aha for myself that's really stuck for me. That's like, conditional well-being means it's dependent on conditions. My well-being is dependent on the condition of being, the right temperature and not being rained on and being, in a relationship or, having enough money or whatever, like the conditions. And like, oh, unconditional means outside of conditions. Conditions are always changing. Like, and it was one of those ahas that was like, oh, it's obvious, because I knew what unconditional meant, but it was like, oh, it's beyond conditions. The conditions can always change and it doesn't change. I get it. And it just really like clicked for me. I really like that term unconditional ever since that aha moment.
Yeah, I love that too. And in this case, the unconditionally fulfilled nature of our being, that other part, fulfilled. If you're filled so full, it's like my mantra, all is well, joy in every cell. And I see it, the vision, if every cell is full of joy, it doesn't have room for anything else. It's full of joy. right? But that fulfilled, unconditionally fulfilled, filled full nature of our being is there's no room or need for anything else,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah. Another thing that struck me from those last two paragraphs, like it felt connected to me to like what we were saying before, or the what I was pointing to before about like what hasn't worked for me about affirmations. That like there's the inward facing path, which is what returns me to peace and happiness, or my unconditionally fulfilled nature. And then moving out again, I can move towards towards connection, or finding like that finding the truth outside of me as well, or like, apparently outside of me, that is still me.
Mhm.
Anyway, it doesn't seem like it's coming through in words, but it just felt connected to me. It clicked something for me that I can't find words for at the moment. That was like, oh yeah, there's the inward path and then the outward path. And it's, yeah, there's something that really resonates for me about that order, that there's like a return to the self and then restore kindness, harmony, and justice in the apparent outside,
Mhm.
Neil, do you feel like reading the next section?
Sure. Experience itself is not inherently problematic. It is only when we abstract ourselves as a separate, independently existing entity or self that a situation becomes a problem. Openness turns into resistance. When we allow ourselves to be defined by our thoughts, feelings, activities, and relationships, we lose touch with our true nature and seem instead to become a temporary, finite self or ego, a separate person. Our suffering begins with that belief. Having tried for most of our life to relieve our suffering through the acquisition of objects, substances, state of mind, activities, and relationships, we eventually come to understand that the belief in being a separate person is the sole cause of that suffering. As the prodigal son eventually turns to face his father, so we begin to question the person we seem to be. Who am I really? What do I say? What do I mean when I say I? Instead of being exclusively fascinated with the drama of our lives, we become profoundly interested in who we are. It becomes clear that our suffering will not come to an end until this question is resolved. At some point, the interest in the nature of I eclipses all other interests. It is like falling in love with the truth or reality. As a self, we seem to be divested of the limitations that it appears to acquire from experience. Our essential, irreducible nature is revealed. Experience no longer obscures our being outshines experience. Just as nothing happens to John Smith throughout the drama of King Lear, so nothing happens to our essential being. It did not previously become ignorant, nor does it now become enlightened. To suggest that a person becomes enlightened is like suggesting that the sun rises in the morning. It is at best a concession to appearances, but more often a misunderstanding. The sun is always in the same place and shining with the same brightness. Likewise, our essential being never undergoes any change or evolution. It always shines with the same luminosity. It is simply concealed and revealed.
Yeah, let's discuss.
I tried to relate this to the 4 agreements that I'm currently reading as well, and just, all these agreements from birth and your parents and teachers and those who are supposed to be teaching you the right way are, adding all these brushstrokes on you and continuously adding things on top. And it's that, I guess, point to which you can't take anymore. So I'd say like that suffering leads to that inward path, and then to kind of shed those agreements and realize that they were put on you by other people, and that will eventually lead to the, I guess, second way of then seeing everyone else. So you kind of have to fall in love with your self before seeing others that way, in most cases, I would say.
I remember one day when I journal a lot. I have been for a long time. And I can remember one day journaling and it just flowed right out of my pen that I would chase truth above anything else, that I had never in my life felt an experience within me that was so profoundly deep and motivating. Like, I mean, I'm talking people in my life just disappeared. They thought I jumped off a cliff and became crazy. And none of that, yeah, it mattered to me on the surface level, but it was this insatiable quest, this thirst I had for knowledge and truth that surpassed anything I had ever felt in my life. And he says that in that at some point the nature of I eclipses all other experiences. It is like falling in love with truth or reality with a big R. And it was a really profound moment when I realized in that epiphany, this path is so incredibly profound. Wherever it takes me, it's going to be beautiful, but I'm in love with knowing what is the truth. And it started with waking up literally one day and going, who am I? Like I had never thought about that. But I don't think anything in this experience will ever eclipse the insatiable desire I have to be in knowledge, truth, and peace. And being with others who see that too. Yeah. Like there became this moment where I didn't even think about a cost to this, that I'm so willing to go alone into this woods. I will do it. The world puts all these onuses on, but you have to have this and you have to. I didn't care about any of that. It was like, I just want to know truth. Yeah. Oh, I get emotional thinking about this because it's really profound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really evident how deeply you've been touched by your path. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you. I wrote down on that same day that every road I've ever been down is a road I needed to be in order to be here now. There's no loss in this path, no loss. God moves in forward momentum. It's always about moving toward expanding,
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you. I love this little section of the chapter a lot.
It becomes clear that our suffering will not come to an end until this question is resolved of who we are. And it's like, I'm right there. Like I'm searching every day. Like, how do I get out of this suffering? And it's this, like that sentence.
Yeah.
Just all day, every day, second I wake up, meditate, try to find truth, try to find peace. Who am I? then throughout the day, those look at the sun, look at the clouds, and just that constant search. And I think like once you get that little bit of this isn't the truth, this isn't reality. I have a Ferrari, and this brings up a memory. Actually, one of my mom's last, about a month before she passed, she bought me a new car, basically my dream car. It was like a muscle car, and I pulled into the driveway after coming back from the dealership, and it was very fast, and pulled into the garage all excited, and she came out with no hair, cancer, looking sickly, and says, "Are you happy now?" And it just hit me right there in the garage, like, no, this is a thing. This is a thing that will never make me happy. And like that was the end of searching for objects, I guess you could say, was that like moment of no, like these things will never make me happy. So I think that's very important, and kind of what'll lead others to that kind of moment, and seeing that the person with the giant mansion is probably confused and just has a lot of things. So yeah.
Thanks, Mom. Yeah, I joke with my clients sometimes, like, I need to make a t-shirt that says, "Great news, nothing will ever make you happy."
I buy it. You make it, I'll buy it.
Cool.
Contemplating your own last days, and thinking like what was important, and it's like just this understanding, and the love you give away, and thinking of, at least for not the fear aspect of like wanting to get into heaven, but just like I think there's more beautiful experiences out there, and how do I attain that? And it's not through being the CEO of the next company and getting money. It's a big lesson for me. So
yeah. Yeah, and a parallel lesson has been big for me too, that like even in the truth that nothing will ever make me happy, it's still okay to have things, or to like create things, or to aspire for things, and that's been it still is an important journey for me, like, okay, peace is what I am. Cool. Now, now I can go do a thing, and become the CEO or whatever, or buy a muscle car if that felt important.
Yeah. Well, the creator wants us to have these experiences. I mean, it's part of our duality reality. And so it is okay. But it's coming back to, for me, it's coming back to the all-knowing, ever-present I am state, state of my own being. But yeah, the creator wants us to enjoy life. Yeah. That's why we're here. There's a lot of souls out there wanting to drop in. So I feel blessed to be here and experience whatever. But the difference is, prior to waking up, I thought those things would bring me happiness. Now I can enjoy them with a very different state of mind. Oh, cool. That's nice for the moment. It's loving detachment, I say.
I find that gratitude helps a lot as well. Just
sure.
Grateful that this car got me to the place where I can serve others, and I got there safe, and grateful that I have the money to keep the air conditioning running so that I can meditate and be in a peaceful climate. And just those little things kind of, I don't know, I guess I like guilt myself into the like cars, and I have air conditioning when other people don't. And that's kind of another slippery slope of the whole path. But I think gratitude is important, and like, I don't know, kind of just thinking that the creator is part of ourself, and it's like the only thing I can think of is just be thankful. Like that's
Yeah.
constant. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And it's, I think it just kind of, I would say, goes hand in hand with finding your true self. You just can't express anything but gratitude for the whole cosmos and everything. Maybe my experience.
Yeah, I was thinking as we were talking about this from the very beginning, what came up for me too, and as I was listening to all of you, there's resonance there. For me, it's not about things making me happy. There's a subtle difference. It's not that the things make me happy, but I find pleasure in all kinds of things. And I think we're supposed to. If in all the teachings I've ever been aware of, there's always at some point a reference back to being a child. Well, what do children do? They play, they find pleasure in everything. You know, I mean, that purity of heart that you know, it's okay, there's a color red on the paper, but the red is beautiful. So is the blue, so is the yellow. I mean, just getting full of joy at the very existence of being and everything that's in it, and a stretch finding beauty in the things that we don't consider naturally beautiful, that there is beauty in everything, even in the darkness, the pain. Everything has its own kind of beauty if we come to fully understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ram Dass said, everywhere you look, you see what you're looking for. I love Ram Dass, but it's so true. I freaked out some people in my inner circle when I was new into spirituality. I was like, everything's wonderful when you see the world that way. What? No, it's not. I'm like, but it is.
Yeah.
There is love in everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I contemplate a quote channeling talking about just the beauty of that 6.5 density negative being that's gone its whole existence, just hating, and then that, you know, burst of love that it gives the creator is like one of the kind of like that is, they say it's, I don't know, it's huge, it's different than the positive path of seeking, just going and just thinking that the creator and just everything on this, like allowing the negative and like that supreme plan, and you know, these 6th, 7th density apparent beings are, you know, allowing, and that we don't have to judge it, and we don't have to say it, we just figure out if that's acceptable for the grand plan of the creator, then it's okay for me, and I don't have to put some type of feeling on it.
Yeah.
And because of that polarity, though, we learn.
Yeah.
They are teachers too.
Our brothers and sisters too. They're us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, for the sake of time, I'll just read the last section. Does that sound good? And then if we want to make final comments, it'll probably be a little after 8, but That's okay with me if we go a little over.
Mhm.
Okay, just as John Smith freely adopts the character of King Lear in order to experience the roles of husband, father, and king, so we freely assume the activities of thinking, feeling, sensing, and perceiving in order to participate in the drama of experience. But just as John Smith never actually becomes King Lear, so we never become a separate self or person. Having lost ourself in experience and overlooked our innate peace and happiness, we embark on a search for them in the world, without realizing that all we really long for is to be free of the limitations we have acquired from experience and to return to our true nature. Nothing we acquire in terms of knowledge, objects, activities, or relationships adds anything to our essential nature. Nothing we lose takes anything away from it. It is only when we turn round to investigate the nature of ourself that we find our way back to our inherent peace. After a first glimpse of our true nature, the old habits of thinking and feeling will, in almost all cases, reappear and obscure it. So we will have to return to it again and again until, in time, we begin to be established in our being. We no longer visit it from time to time. We live there. And just as John Smith eventually learns to play the role of King Lear without losing himself in it, so we are able to participate fully in experience without allowing it to veil our true nature and its innate joy. To paraphrase Lao Tzu, thus one who knows their true nature never loses touch with its innate peace, however far they may travel and whatever they may do.
This,
Yeah.
for me, brought up all the stories of washing dishes and, being able to get to that point of doing a task like that. And that's kind of been my like checkpoint on myself is I'm doing dishes again. And as I'm doing dishes, how aware am I that I'm doing the dishes, or am I worried about tomorrow? And this part reminded me of that, of when I can remember in that small task to be that awareness is kind of my like checkpoint on myself. It's like, oh, you're assimilating it, the gradual part of this. And yeah, so I'm excited to get to that part where I truly love the dishes.
I love the fact that I recognize these things faster and faster now than, that I'm not going to be thoroughly conscious at all times, but I'm very much more aware, and I can get back to a place from fear to love, a lot sooner. My pets are, my cat and dog are a beautiful reminder of just being in the present, because that's all they know. And when I really focus on them, it's like, man, that's really cool, because there's no yesterdays or tomorrow. They don't know any of that, nor do little children. But celebrate these beautiful wins in the time between the, doing the dishes and then recognizing I'm thinking about something else is getting the collapsing time here.
Yeah.
It's the 3 steps forward, 2 steps back.
I'm
actually 10 miles from where I was a year ago.
Yeah, they're all steps forward.
Yeah, this was a really good chapter. I enjoyed this one a lot.
Yes, me
Right.
too. Well, as Rupert Spira says, experience itself is not inherently problematic. So
Yeah.
I think it's the twists and turns we take with life and our experiences that add whatever it is But what did Buddha say? 3 things will matter most. It's how gently you lived, how much you loved, and how much you let go of things that were not meant for you. And so looking at everything from the place of love and experience. And I always ask, what is this teaching me? What am I learning here? And that helps me take life a little less seriously, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a helpful talisman for me over the past few years, which is the temple of the open heart, right? Like eventually we hope and aspire to build a physical temple, and there's a lot of challenges along the way. There's a lot of hurdles, there's a lot of complexity, there's a lot we're navigating. And in the meantime, what's really important is to build the temple of the open heart, right? So like on that road with all the complexities, I return to the temple of the open heart. I always have the temple of the open heart to return to.
Yay. I appreciate all of you for this sharing and dialogue. And BJ, always just gratitude for bringing this together. And we learn from each other, you know. The spiritual path is community, and I'm very grateful for this space.
Me too. I'm already envisioning potentially reading the next 2. We have being aware of being aware.
I'm in.
And we have the heart of prayer.
I'm in.
This is a 3-part series, so.
Well, good. We're on to 2024.
Awesome.
It's like we're just getting started.
I know.
Well, it's amazing how much juice you can squeeze out of this little book, you know?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That's good.
Any final comments, Spirit Song? Yeah, go ahead.
Perfect for me. I mean, I don't have a lot of time, and I don't have a lot of the kind of energy physically or bandwidth to take in some of the really massive, deep works. But this I can dive into, and it's so rich and so powerful in such small space, so to speak, compared to some of the other things that I hear people sharing. And I'm grateful, because it feels good to have something. Now I have enough strength and energy to commit to something. And it's just the right, right bite size for me to be able to chew on it and really get so much, and so much from each of you and your perspectives, and appreciation at your openness to hear me in where I'm coming from too. It's beautiful. Thank you all.
Same time next week.
Same time, same bat station.
Yeah. Same frequency.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.